Welcome. It's 6 o'clock. This is the Board of Public Works meeting for the City of Franklin. It's Tuesday, November the 14th of 2023. Let's do a quick roll call. Myself, Chairman Webster is here. Alderman Hassan.
Here.
Commissioner Woznicki.
Here.
Commissioner Porter.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Skowronski.
Here.
Commissioner Speck is not here this evening. City Engineer Morrow.
Here.
Assistant City Engineer Beinlich.
Here.
And Highway Superintendent Schlater. Did I
Here.
see him walk in? Yes,
Yep.
I did.
Here.
Thank you. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance quick. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so we have we'll start with the reading and approval of the minutes from the August 8th meeting. We've had 2 months off. Actually, that's a long time for us, but lack of agenda items has put us to that spot. So we'll start with the reading and approval of the minutes for the June 13th, for the August 8th meeting. So I'm going to I'm going to, being that there were a number of members that weren't here for that meeting, I'm going to be looking for those who were here to make the motion for approval of that.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, and is there a second for that?
I second that.
Alderman Hassan? Is there anybody here who, any other comments? I'm going to make one comment, and only, I can't recall, because I remember I was the one that brought it up, and Mr. Porter here was asking me about the minutes for the June 13th meeting. We made a modification to that meeting minutes, and Chuck was asking me what that was. And I remember I pointed it out, but I can't remember the detail of the minutes. Do you know what that was off the top of your head?
Top of my head, no, it's been forever ago.
Yeah, I know.
I tell you what I can do. I can have that researched, and I will email that out to the board just so you all have that information.
Yeah, that would be helpful, because I can't answer the question because I simply don't remember. But it was something kind of clerical.
That was the June 13th meeting?
Yes, there was something on the June 13th. There was a clerical question, and it was just a correction.
It was in regards to the approval of the May 9th minutes, so it may go all the way back to May 9th. I was just asking Jonathan for clarification, and so he did bring it up. Thank you very much.
Yeah, because we did the approval of the May 9th meeting, okay, and so he's just reading it off of the minutes from here from that time frame. So
I honestly can't recall.
well, just so we get the clarification for us, I'd appreciate that. Okay, so we have a motion to approve as presented to the minutes from the August 8th meeting from Commissioner Woznicki. That's seconded by Alderman Hassan. All of those in favor, aye. And myself is aye. Are there any nays? Okay. Are there any abstentions?
Yes.
So Commissioner Skowronski will abstain. Commissioner Johnson will abstain. And Commissioner Porter will abstain. Okay? So we got that in there correctly. I'm going to do the public comment period, and I'm going to open it up for just a second. We have a new member, Commissioner Witt has resigned. I think it was basically resigning just from his, wanting to do things in his retirement. And now we have Mr. Johnson. Let me tell you, my name's John Webster. I've been on this board for, I don't know, since they used stone and chisels and whatever. Just a little bit about yourself and about 30. I've been on this board for about 30 years and chairman for the last 10. And so,
Congratulations or condolences?
either one works. Trust me. A little bit about yourself, how you got on the board, how you came to ask to come on the board. You don't have to make a big, long.
It's green.
It's green. There you go.
Okay.
I'm good to go.
Yep. Not a big, long thing, but just a quick 2 cents on yourself, so at least we get to.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's pretty hard at 72 years old to give you a quick overview of my history, but basically, I've been a parks director or in the public park department for 50 years, retired from the Department of Natural Resources, did some consulting work with various communities. My claim to fame is that I was the first director of the Hank Aaron Trail and the construction manager of Lakeshore State Park.
Okay.
So that was my legacy, my swan
Sure.
song, and going away. After we completed Lakeshore State Park, and this is not meant to be a political statement, but under Governor Thompson, he had an entirely different vision of what was going to happen to the park. Under other administrations, that changed.
Sure.
And it was pretty tough to be a superintendent to nobody. So I took that opportunity to retire and move on. And I've done some work in surrounding
Sure.
states.
Well, I appreciate that.
And I was on the park commission for a while here, and John and I go back because I'm credentialed law enforcement, and I knew John
Okay.
through the park systems. And so
Okay.
here I am.
Here I am. Okay. Well, we appreciate you and welcome aboard. You'll get to meet most of us. Some of us work in private industry. Some of us work in other government industries. You'll get to know us a little bit over time.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Now we're going to open up the actual public comment period. If you're on the, I believe that you're here for item 3A. 5C. Yep. I'm going to start with that, and you can do you don't need to come to public comment. If you want to bring something, we'll let you speak at that time. So this is kind of for items that are not on the agenda, if you will, and want to address the board. Okay, it's 6:08, and since no one's coming forth, we will declare the public comment period closed. And then we're going to go ahead and take this out of order, and we're going to start with item 5C, which is the petition for the neighborhood traffic calming measures on West Putes Road from South 35th to Hunting Park Drive. This is something that is an area of the city that has been on our agenda many different times.
Okay. So we've talked about Putes Road many, many times, many different locations, and this road especially, I think we all understand that it's a very narrow section. So we're talking Putes Road between 35th and, say, around 42nd or Huntington Park Road. And if you recall, we've had discussions in association with Kayla's. Kayla's is generating a lot of traffic. That's generated a lot of issues with the neighbors that we had many, many discussions here at the Public Works about. And in fact, if you recall, we even talked about a lot of the speed issues that we have. It's a very narrow road. Here's a if you were just on the west side of 35th Street looking west, Kayla's over on your left. You get some residential homes hidden along the right. You see there is a 30-mile-an-hour speed zone where it drops from 35 to 30. That's why you see this posting here. And then there's also, we have some playground, hopefully to slow some folks down there. on top of the speed signs on both sides, we did put the windmill. So again, we've talked at length about the effectiveness of those. It really does a job of pointing out the fact that there is a speed limit sign right there. That draws people's attention to it. We also have it on a rotating process where your speed is flashing signs, and that happens occasionally. I'm not sure how often the police department's getting out there with that, but I know it's been done in the past in some force. So anyway, not too long ago, I don't remember the exact date, but I received a petition that did appear on the Common Council and from several residents along the neighborhood that wants us to do something else in this section. So I suggested, I'm open to suggestions. Let's come talk to the Board of Public Works about it, and we can talk about effectiveness. So with that, I think the gentleman who initially submitted the petition is here. So would hang on, sir.
Yeah, you want to bring them up to the table so we can have you on a microphone, and then you can be picked up. So name and address for the record, please.
It's like I'm back in court again. I brought the petition because for years I've been asking the police department to patrol that area, and the people just go by there so fast, and it's all the time. It's a constant thing, and they haven't been doing anything about it. I believe you're on the Board of Supervisors, aren't you? You're not. It must be a different.
Common Council.
It's a different guy then. But I gave a 10-page report to all the council members, and it was pretty comprehensive. And I didn't bring it today because I didn't know the meeting was moved up until I went into my other room and saw the messages on my phone, and it said 6 o'clock, and it was 10 to 6. So I ran out of there, and I didn't have my notes with me. But I've been writing letters to the mayor. Started out in May 3rd, or shortly after he was elected. In fact, I talked to him before he was elected, and I said, "Well, I'll help you get elected. I'll put a sign up, and do whatever I can to help you out if you can work on Putes Road and see if you can't get the people to do the speed limit. It's there's a playground there. There's a dog park there. There's it's a nature center. It's a destination area. It's a place where people go out of their way to go to. It's not a road like the police chief wrote that it's like any other road in the city. It's not like any other road in the city. I've been living there for 35 years. I moved in there in 1988. Well, they didn't have anything. The road didn't even go all the way through. And it's just gotten worse and worse and worse, and nobody seems to do anything about it. Now, the little twirly things on top of that 30-mile-per-hour speed limit, Mr. Morrow here seemed to indicate in an email I got from him saying that he thinks that might help. It doesn't help at all. It's just a little thing up there for the people to fly by even faster to see if it can go spin faster, according to what I've seen. The police have a sign or a speed sign set up there, but they only have it going one way from the west to the east, and it's right in front of my house, right on top of a sign that says school, playground, and something else, I don't know, playground and something else. But it only goes one way, and
It's usually on this sign right here, right?
yeah, that's the sign right there. There's my house right there. And
I can turn around here.
it actually
You-
doesn't.
We usually put the sign is on this sign right here.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
That's where it goes. Or
Yeah.
That's where it is now.
Okay.
I think. I called the police department to find out how that worked, and because it wasn't illuminated, and now my neighbor sitting in the back here, from where his porch is, he can see that sign. And if it's on, you can actually see a car speeding down the road, and you know they're speeding. I know they're speeding because I'm retired from the sheriff's department, and I was a former Milwaukee police officer, and I've been in the Army and a Cub Scout. I guess I've been in a uniform all my life. But he can see that sign. He knows when somebody's speeding, and if it flashes, you can see that they're doing 50. He can record the time, but he can't do that if it's not on. It doesn't work anyway, because I called up on a Friday one time. Some sergeant was over there, and he was supposed to return my call, and he didn't. So 3 days later, I was on my elliptical machine upstairs, and I got a call from a captain from the police department, and I asked him how that operated, and he said, well, I think every fifth car, they take a speed of 5-car increments or something like that. It didn't quite make sense to me, but I was up there at 7:28 Friday morning, which was in my notes, which I don't have with me, and I looked out the window and I could see somebody flying down the road. It was just a single car. I knew he was speeding, and so I jotted down the time and I jotted down the date, and I asked him about that. I said, well, can you tell me on this particular date, particular time, how fast that car was going? And he said, it was speeding, but it was going 51 to 55. Well, that doesn't make any sense to me. 51 to 55, that's a 4-mile-hour disparity, and it's not accurate, in other words. So then I asked him, I was there Friday night, I forgot the date, at a certain time, and I forgot the time. I said, now I saw a string of cars, 4 cars coming down the road. Now the sign, I guess, would take a measurement of the first car and how fast that car was going, and of course the other cars in succession would have to do as fast as the first car would, and if the first car was going slow, well, then they have all slow speeds. As I was watching this, the last car sped by all of the cars in front of him because he didn't want to be last, I guess, to get to the stop sign, which wasn't too far down the road. So I asked him, I said, well, did you get the speed on that fourth car, the one that was going the fastest, probably 60, to pass everybody up? And he said, no, they couldn't get it. So, well, I'm just addressing the fact that the sign was only on for one side or one direction, not the other, and basically it's not giving you accurate information.
So as you are sitting there, the petition apparently was asking for calming measures. That is something that we've discussed for different areas of the city in the past. We are not quite sure how effective calming measures are. What type of calming measures are you thinking might be useful?
Speeding tickets. Police out there,
Okay.
they're not out
That's,
there.
see, that's enforcement, in my opinion. That's what we call enforcement.
Yeah,
Okay,
well, it's
from this
also
board.
it's
It's a calming measure. So
Somebody
what you're
gets a
really
ticket.
asking for is an uptick in enforcement on the road. Is that
Right, well,
okay?
what-
That's fine.
What
I'm
everybody's asking for is for some police presence to be there. Now, I've gone through all kinds of legal things with the police department, filing open records requests. I filed an open records request for all the traffic tickets in the city of Franklin in 2022. So they gave me a printout of everything. On Putes Road, there were only 8 citations issued in the entire year, from 35th Street to Hunting Park. Now,
Okay.
the cars go by there constantly, and That's why I'm here, that's why we're all here.
Okay,
In '23, for the first 6 months, there was only 3 citations issued. Now, a squad car can sit in the playground and see all the traffic that's coming from the west to the east. My brother and I was also a retired deputy sheriff. We were leaving the house one day, saw this guy tearing down the road, knew he was speeding 55 possibly, and there was a police car in the parking lot, but he wasn't running radar. So the car, when he went past my house, you could see his brake lights go on because he saw the squad car. He knew he was speeding. We knew he was speeding. Police probably knew he was speeding, but they couldn't get him because they didn't have the radar. They were just probably writing reports over there. But you can actually sit there. It's, not during, of course, peak playtime with all kinds of kids and stuff like that, but you can sit there if you want to. But
okay.
I seem to be having a little trouble with the police chief for some reason.
So, essentially, but yeah, when I saw this, when you said that, when the term was calming measures, I kind of think there are different things that have been tried in different communities, not only here in Wisconsin, but all across. They do the line things, and they do these different things that haven't seemed to have any numbers behind them to say that they actually calm traffic or slow it down, shall we say?
Well, I just gave
Well,
you-
what I'm saying is that, so I was a little confused by that, but enforcement
That was
is
just a
something
polite-
I agree.
Excuse me, that was just a polite.
Yeah,
term.
that's fine.
Get
I
some
appreciate
cops
that.
out there.
I appreciate that. I'm just trying to make sure we're on the same page with what you're talking about.
It's like I said, the police chief seems to think that that's an average street. It's not an average street.
So-
It's a destination.
Let me ask this question. I'm trying to recall back. Putes Road went through, was that like, what, 2000, 2002,
I
2000?
forgot, I've been there so much.
Somewhere in there, it went through like,
Yeah.
right, like 2002?
Yeah, something like that.
Was there I'm assuming that there was a noticeable increase in traffic at that time.
Like 1,000%.
Okay. The second question I have is, my wife and I drove that road on a Friday night, maybe a month ago or so, on purpose, because I drive down that road, and I noticed your number 2 item here is wildlife, and we saw a deer jumping across right at Kalis Park, and is that a frequent occurrence also right there?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
See, so, but I'm surprised that have there been any interaction, car, deer
Oh, yeah.
in that area?
I was waking out of sleep because of a shotgun blast with deer's head right across the street from me.
Well, I was really referring to automobile interaction with deer.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just asking the question.
That was that's something I'd probably have to ask for an open records request.
Well,
I mean, I could ask the question, but I haven't asked the question, so I can't tell you if there's.
I'm just curious if there has been a number
Animal
of
collisions?
number of animal
Yeah.
collisions there with deer, because
I don't know.
I mean, the one night I drove down there on a Friday night, I had to hit my brakes and slow down for the deer. So I'm just saying, geez, if by one night I drive down there, I run into one. Yeah, it could just be a one-off, but my gut tells me no, it's not.
Yeah.
That's
Deer-
my
deer
gut.
cross that road every single day.
Oh, sure. I mean, there.
And
Yeah.
there's
So
droves of them.
what we can do is we can add our request from this board as a measure to ask for enforcement from the police department, the issue that we have. And it will carry some weight being from this board. The issue we have is it comes down to, the number of officers that we have and how they deploy their members and how they deploy their officers, and what specifically is requested, throughout the city for enforcement, what they're looking for. So we can add our requests. One thing that is good is particular times of day when we see more of these interactions with speed levels. Is it all day long, or is it more focused at morning and afternoon rush hours? Is there any leadway there?
It's any time of the day, any time of the night.
Any time of day.
Anytime.
Okay, I'm going to ask any board members here if they have any questions or comments that they want to bring up.
Well, I'm kind of new on this board.
Sure,
so-
Mr. Johnson.
So my question is there a history of accidents?
Well, I didn't bring my notes because.
Well, and I'm sorry that I didn't get a chance to read.
So that's something that can be requested by the city engineer for us, for a, they can give us incidents. That's why I was asking about the deer.
Right,
vehicle
so I think it would be
interactions.
important to have a history of the issues on Putes Road, whether it be accidents with animals, wildlife, or vehicles.
Well, a vehicle,
I-
post office lady got rear-ended and she got a concussion right on about the 3200 block of people.
Well, certainly, I'm sure.
Hi, my name's Don Burkle. I live next door to Frank.
Excuse me, sir.
Okay,
Excuse me.
Can you, name and address, can you just make sure it gets into the, can you do the name and address again so it's in the,
Don Burkle,
Thank
3828
you.
West Putes Road. And like Frank just mentioned, the mail lady, she was pulled over to put mail in my mailbox. I heard it. She got pushed. It took out my mailbox, totaled out the car. She was in the ditch. The paramedics took her away. That's just one. There's that. I could honestly, in the last, I can't give you exact years, the accidents out in front of my home there.
Well,
And
the
how many mailboxes were torn down? Right now,
By the snowplow.
no, there's snowplow. I know that snowplows. But this one here, the other day, that first snow we had, I went out to look and you could see the tire tracks in the ditch, how they came out, kept going, missed the mailbox. Okay. Couple days later, I go out, they're in the ditch on the other side. I don't know what the heck they're doing, probably on their phones and speeding like crazy, because that's what they do there. I know Frank's done it, I've done it, my neighbor to the west of me is selling his home. He said he's out of Putes Road. It's crazy and no one does nothing.
well, I think the best thing that we can do at this point is to make a motion to request that Putes Road in the area of, I'm going to say the area of Kalos Park, because that's a area that is relatively known. High traffic in the area and speed, and to request enforcement of the police department at that location. I think that is something we can certainly do. We can also add to that request to give us some history for the last year or 2 years on accidents, both vehicular and vehicular deer or vehicular animal. The one thing I wanted to point out here at this point in time, it's not going to do any good to lower the speed limit. And I'm glad you didn't ask for that, because people are going to drive what they want to drive. And the way to slow them down is to give them tickets. I agree with you 100%. So I'm going to ask the members of the board if someone would want to make that motion. Mr. Porter, you had your hand up.
Well, I was going to make a comment, but I'll make.
Well, you can make the comment.
Make a motion for additional enforcement?
Okay.
Is that what you're looking for?
Yes, that is what I'm looking for.
I agree with you. I'll make a motion for additional enforcement.
Request additional enforcement.
Request additional enforcement, okay? And I'll let you handle that first. And then I'd like to
Okay,
make comment.
before the comment, since the motion is on the floor, is there a second to that motion? Okay, Commissioner Woznicki, thank you. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Porter.
This isn't necessarily to this motion, but it applies. I'm speaking for myself personally. I don't want you people to think you have to defend your concern, all right? You have a legitimate
Chuck, could you-
concern for,
Oops.
okay, well,
I'm sorry.
all right. You have I understand, and I feel it for you. You have a legitimate concern, and the problem is our hands are somewhat tied too. What we're looking at here, I feel, is a systemic problem all over the place. I mean, you see the news, you see it going on in Milwaukee. I happen to work on the north side of town. Good Hope Road, you're taking your life into your hands driving down Good Hope Road because they ignore stoplights. And it's not just, I'm not saying they, people in general are just not following the rules. So, I mean, to ask the police to come and, I mean, they can write tickets all day long, and it may affect some, but the chronic abusers are going to continue to keep doing that kind of stuff.
Then they can lose their licenses.
And they'll keep driving. It's
Well,
unfortunate.
That's fine, and then they can go to jail.
And you're correct.
See, I don't know what the
I-
progression is.
I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying, I think, in general, it's a problem with our society today that people just don't want to follow rules.
That's because the rules aren't enforced.
Possibly,
But that's a different issue. What we
Yeah.
can do is what we can do.
right, and that's where I was going with this, and so.
What I'd like to suggest is,
Okay, just hold on just a minute here. I'm going to let, we have a motion on the floor, and I'll get back to you in a minute, but I'm going to let the board have some conversations, and I think Mr. Morrow would also like to make a comment. Are you finished?
I'm done.
Okay,
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Morrow.
Yeah, I would like to follow up. I don't disagree at all that there's an issue out there. I think we've discussed this multiple times. What to do about it is the big thing. So I just want to clarify something you said. I do believe that the little pinwheel things are effective. They're effective at telling people what the speed is, which is the same thing with the flashing lights. The problem is people realize they're speeding and just don't care. I mean, that's really what's going on. Just to follow up on Hell's Corners found this out. If you go up 116th Street, cross Franklin into Hell's Corners, you'll see if your speed is, it flashes. They found out that was effective for a month or two, and then no longer effective. People realize that it doesn't mean anything, and again, they know how fast they're going. They just don't care. And as I tell everyone, I think really police tickets are really the most effective way to slow a lot of these issues down. I wish we had more police officers out enforcing, doing this instead of doing whatever else that they're doing too. So, don't disagree with anything you're saying. If there was something structurally that we could do, we've talked many times about speed humps. They're just really not for Franklin. Most communities that do them, especially around people that their houses put them in, hate them. Because now every day you hear ba-boom, 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 and it kind of shakes your house. So we've looked at those kinds of issues. We've looked at, and I'm mentioning this because we've got some new folks on the board too. I think we've pretty much looked at the gamut of every single possible structural thing that's out there. We just can't figure out how to do it other than go have somebody out there with a sledgehammer hitting cars. I just don't know what to do. It's a issue where people everywhere are just driving. They just don't care. So
Okay,
my 2 cents.
so we'll get back here to my motion, and let's do this, and then I'll allow you to have a final comment, okay? The motion I'm going to read what I wrote, and then I want to make sure that that's what they meant, okay? To request focused enforcement for speed and traffic. Okay, let me start that again because I just screwed it up. Request enforcement focus for speed and traffic violations by the police department for Putes Road near Kalis Park.
Yes, that sounds fine.
That sounds great. Okay. So then all of those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any negatives? Okay, not hearing any negatives, that will pass. I would also like to request to get that, to the request for information from the police department, please.
Yeah.
because I think that that would be useful to us, and, but I didn't put that in the motion, so.
I'll have an update next month.
Thank you so much, appreciate it. Go ahead, I'll let you comment to what we've done, please.
I had a couple of things to say. First of all, what we need, the police department can't do anything unless they have a place to put their squad car.
That is an issue that,
I looked at the playground today. I don't know if you've obviously looked at the playground, and there's probably no place to put it. You might be able to grade some area on the west side of the playground over there in the grass.
Actually, I know that place very well because there's a wetland there I had to avoid, and otherwise I would have made the parking lot further to the west.
How about putting in the middle of the woods?
So
Can you put a spot there? Put a culvert underneath it, but put a spot on the top where a squad car could sit with just stone, light pavement or something like that.
I'll tell you what we could look at. This is where the trail comes out of the Franklin Woods. So look across the street, whatever.
Yeah, but see, they sit there anyway, but that doesn't do any good for that.
Too far out.
That's too far.
Yeah,
out.
no. So problem we get into is the fact that there's a lot of wetlands and other things I have to.
See, I'm thinking
I'm not
right
allowed to touch.
there. put a culvert so the water can go through, but make a little area for a squad car to sit. You don't even have to man that squad car. You put a car over there and people will slow down.
For a while.
Well, until they find out that there's an actual man in there.
I tell you what, for the next month, I'll between now and then I'll walk out there with street superintendent. And we'll actually look at places, what's physically possible.
Okay, yeah, that's the one thing. Geez, I wish I had my notes. I had a bunch of other things.
well,
Go ahead, Don.
yeah, go ahead,
Did
sir.
any one of you guys ever hear, because I've had numerous encounters with the police department also. I mean, you cannot go to your mailbox
That's
without
right. That's one of the things I was going to say.
being scared that you're gonna get hit. All right, what about the speed limit? Okay, the cops told me, we let them go 10 over.
Well, with that, I can't say I agree or disagree with the policy, but what I can tell you is, my understanding is that the municipal judge will essentially let under 10 over if they come in front of their, off with a warning from the judge. So now you're talking about a different enforcement, criteria for that. So, but the way you're describing this, we're not talking 10 over. We're talking a lot of vehicles that are 15, 20, 25 over. They're not going to let,
Average, too.
yeah, and they're not
45 is
going to let that off. So I think that, I believe, we've seen this in the past. If you go out there, and here's the problem. You go out there and you put the enforcement in place, and they'll write some tickets, and they'll get, and they'll do that 3 weeks later when it's off the rotation, it will come back at speed. It's just the way people are. So I'm going to let you know, just be wary that even if there is increased enforcement, that the speed is still going to be there. And I don't know how, there's not a really good way to lower the speed, because the people are going to drive what the people want to drive. The enforcement will knock down some speed, but it won't be long-term, unless you keep coming back and rotate back into that location. And that's true anywhere. It doesn't matter where you are. It just is true.
Well, if you go on Facebook or something, my daughter was on there, because she called during the week and
Okay.
got some young officer, and I don't know if he knew what he was talking about. She got a sergeant, who's very nice, and they're talking, and he says, well, could we park in your driveway? Because years ago, we were through this crap.
Mhm.
And every neighbor said, park in our driveways,
Yeah.
Every neighbor signed, from 35th Street to Hunting Park, everybody signed that petition that's adjacent to that,
Yeah.
nature center.
So we did
Except for
not.
one guy,
So,
and he's the guy that's moving.
okay, so here's the one issue just to be aware of. If we look for a petition, we'll send out our own petition because we've run into this in the past where people have signed petitions and or they bring in something that says they signed and then I've gotten into this argument in the past where we say, well, we didn't sign it and they forced us or whatever.
Well, they've got
So
numbers,
if-
phone numbers
if-
on every one of them.
Yeah, but
I'm
so
pretty
normally
sure.
when we do a petition, we'll ask for it from the engineering department to send out. But I don't think we need one in this
I don't
case
think we
because
need
I think we know that they're there. I'm just letting you know, petitions we need to be a little
You
careful
can
about.
actually expand that petition. We only went from
Yeah.
35th to Hunting Park.
So-
If you want to go from 27th to 35th, you could do that. People
Yeah.
on both sides.
I'm
of the
sure you
road.
would.
And even the people that, they have to cross the street,
Yeah.
they're even in more danger than.
Yeah, well, the
Yeah,
school buses
like I
out
said,
there
you know,
for
even
kids.
with the speed, you know, the real problem is that people are just going to ignore the speed limits, and the only way you're going to get them into control is enforcement. And I agree with you on that. It's just how often, how long would that be? An old story that happened when I first got on this board back in the early 1990s. You know, at that time we did not have a stop sign warrant for the city. People come in and just ask for stop signs, and they kind of went up. In a neighborhood on the north side of town, there was a three-way stop requested, and we did warn the citizens who came in and requested that. They put the three-way stop sign in, and we warned the citizens that they will also ticket you for going through those stop signs, and the first ticket that was given for that stop sign was given to an individual who's in here arguing to have that stop sign put in because they drove right through the stop sign. So be careful yourselves for speeding because you will get caught first. I'm just letting you know, be aware, okay?
In 35 years, I must have gone through that stop sign about 1 billion times, maybe.
Well, I'm just saying. It wasn't in your neighborhood where this stop sign is located. This is in a different neighborhood. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and move on, okay? And that is about the best that we can do on this board at this point in time, but that we will follow up with some statistics next month.
Would you like you to think about, like you were saying, Glenn, a place for a squad car to sit?
Yep, and
That'll be in
Glenn
my
and-
report for next
and-
month.
And Kevin had talked about going and walking that
Yeah,
next
because
week,
even
so.
the police can't, get in.
You gotta have a place to sit.
Even if they sit in my driveway, they're still sticking out like a
Yeah.
sore thumb.
I see.
Don saw the squad car, because the police chief, for one day, he put a bunch of squad cars in there, but they weren't doing any good because they were
Yeah.
all visible.
Yep.
And Don saw the guy in my driveway from 35th Street, I was 3 blocks away.
Yep.
But,
Well, thank you for coming, and
oh,
this board will continue to, we've talked about this area quite a bit over the last couple, 4 or 5, 6, ever since Caleb's Park went in.
yeah, and it's
been
the
talked.
animals that are killed all the time.
Yeah.
I had a list of all the animals, turkeys,
Sure. Okay,
raccoons, everything.
we're
Okay,
gonna,
thank you,
thank you, sir, and everybody coming in, thank you.
Sure.
Are you were all for the same issue, correct?
My
Thank you.
number's on the petition if you have any questions, if anybody does, to clarify anything.
I appreciate it.
Just give me a call. Thank you.
Why do you say that 25 mile, not like say lower the speed limit? Why do you say that's not effective?
Well, if people are driving 50 miles an hour now with a 30, they're still, it doesn't matter if you go down to 25, they're still gonna drive 50.
Yeah, we're talking, that's the reckless driving. We're talking about normal Joe Schmo that does 15
You-
over. I know.
Because it just, people have a tendency to drive what they feel comfortable driving in the roadway.
I understand.
And
but
they-
honest people keep
and-
them honest too. You see
Some,
a guy who's doing 30 miles
yes,
an hour with 5
but
cars.
those that aren't honest, they're not going to be,
I know, we can't
so
control that.
you're not gonna be, and what it does is when you put in signs for lower speed limits, you put in stop signs where they really are not indicated or shouldn't be for controlling the intersection itself, people get a false sense of security that's going to slow down traffic, that's going to control traffic, and it doesn't. And it actually creates more of a safety risk because there's a false sense of security that's being added to the equation that's not truly there.
How about 15 miles an hour when children are present?
Drive by the high school.
Well, the
Need
high
I-
school's got more protection than that playground does.
No, but my point is, drive by there when children are present. Very seldom do they actually drive 15 miles an hour. It's hard to drive 15 miles an hour. It really is. Drive 15 miles an hour. It's very slow.
The other thing is, the more tickets that the more traffic stops you make out there, even 10 miles an hour, you
Yep.
get all kinds of other things like warrants and
Well, that's always a true statement. So, okay. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to item 5A, which is the request for installation of street sign, no parking here to the street, between the entrance to Hidden Lakes and West Rawson Avenue on 35th Street.
So, if you're
I'm
familiar
curious
with,
about this one.
I have had a resident email me multiple times, and actually went through the alder person. Had a concern about traffic, parking in this section. So Rawson Avenue, 35th Street, 27th Street's to your right. If you look at the first block north of Rawson, this is it's called Hidden Lakes, I believe. Hidden Lakes.
I think it's Hidden Lakes condominiums.
Yeah, Hidden Lakes condominiums. As I understand the problem, and I've been out there and looked at it several times, the concern is that cars parking here is an unsafe situation. I've been out there. I have seen cars parked, but they're generally back in here. Talked to the police department. The state statute is you have to be at least 10 feet behind a stop sign. So every time I've been past there looking for violations, if you will, I haven't seen anyone even close to the 10 foot. They're several 10 feet away. And then having looked into the situation, if you think about what if this car were to block, looking to the left. So if I were to look at coming up on the intersection, I guess my concern is what really is the concern. If your vision is blocked in this direction, you're not seeing cars that have already passed you. So therefore, if you pull out, you wouldn't have that problem. And I would suggest that there is plenty of room, even 10 feet behind the stop bar, in front of the stop bar. There's, before the crosswalk, you still can see cars coming from the other direction. So if you want to pull out and turn left, having cars parked here does not obstruct your view for oncoming traffic. And I guess I'm having a tough time seeing the concern. This resident is seriously concerned about the issue. She could not make it tonight for health reasons, but she did want the board to figure out if something could be done. I guess the concern is if you can give me some ideas, or maybe we should really should.
So,
Is that really a problem to have 10 feet?
I have some opinions, but as I live in the neighborhood, but
Me too. I mean,
I'll let the
there's-
alderman speak first. Did this citizen come to you also?
No, they haven't come to me
Well, I
about
thought
this.
I know it came through an alder person, but I was thinking it was because it's your district, right?
Yeah, it is my district.
So.
But did they, I don't recall getting any message from anybody about this.
Well, they might have went
Was
to
it
somebody
before?
else.
Before
They
my
could have.
time?
They could have gone before your time.
I don't know, but I don't know if you want to put like a no parking.
Well,
People usually don't park on the streets.
see, here's my problem. I have two main problems with this. Number one, approximately maybe every 5 years, the condominium units here, they retar their parking lots and so forth, and no one's allowed to park in the parking lots, and they park on the streets. And I'm afraid that if we put up a lot of no parking signs in this area, that's just going to kind of be a very negative to those individuals parking on that street. This is not a narrow road. 35th Street is wide. It's got good view to the left as you come up to Rawson Avenue. There is no obstruction to your left to see. Looking to the right, you have Rawson Avenue is a boulevard that's a divided highway. There, I don't see a problem there. When it's a 40-foot road.
Yes.
Yeah, and then you add the sidewalk into that. That's another 10 or so feet there to the sidewalk. So you have ample vision right now. The only thing I could think of is if somebody's parked fairly close to that stop sign, so illegally, so to speak, you come up to the stop sign and you have to go around a car, but you got 40 feet of road to work with. I don't understand the need. I think this is a request from somebody who wants to complain.
You're being recorded, sir.
Yeah, I know. Let them record me.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with that. You know me.
I just want to point that out. If you're open to suggestions.
My suggestion is I don't see a need for it.
I'd be more than happy to send a reply that the Board of Public Works discuss the issue.
So, does anybody else have any comments about this besides me?
You said it all.
I said, okay. You're not in disagreement.
No?
Okay, so what I would ask for is a motion to deny the request for the no parking, for the street sign, no parking here to street, or here, in this area, on 35th Street from Hidden Lakes to West Rawson Avenue.
I don't live in the neighborhood. I'll make that motion, the way he said it.
Okay.
I agree with you. I think it's unnecessary.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any other comments from other board members? Okay, all of those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, that will pass. That was my opinions. Okay. Then we'll move on to 5B, which is the traffic signal at South Preserve Way and 51st Street with the draft MOU, which is an acronym. I'll let you go. It's in there. I've read it. I can't remember it off the top of my head.
Memorandum of Understanding.
Memorandum of Understanding with the Franklin Public Schools. Now, if I understand, this has come to us, already been talked to at the council and the school board. Is that correct? There's already negotiations in between there about this?
Yes.
So I'll let
So,
you bring that to us.
okay. So, let me give you the history. So, several months ago, about May, I believe, I was asked what the cost would be for a signal on 51st in front of the high school at Preserve Way. And so I called a couple consultants because it's a little bit out of our bailiwick because we do not have any traffic signals here in the city of Franklin. All those traffic signals are either state or county owned and maintained. So since we didn't have one, I called some consultants, and the absolute plain Jane system, by the time you figure consulting, all the work you have to do to put one in and so forth, is roughly $250,000 to $300,000, and that was the same price from two different consultants. So I reported that back, and I thought the subject was dead. And then one day I was given a draft memorandum of understanding. The administration had been talking to the school, and so they had decided that one was needed. And so I was tasked with trying to find a consultant to do the design, and I was shown the draft memorandum of understanding to try to finish it up. So, having said that, I did get to work, and we contacted R.A. Smith. If you recall, R.A. Smith is the firm that actually very familiar with the area. They did the roundabout design a few years ago, and with the exception of the year when they had no school bus drivers, the intersections worked very, very nice. I'm very, very pleased with the way that whole area is now working. So having said that, we did look into it. Talked with the consultant. We got a draft or actually got a contract together. That was taken to Common Council last meeting. I wasn't at the meeting, but I understand it was approved. And then, but also and you see the draft council or the council action that was submitted to Common Council. It's in your packet. I suggested that I would love to take this to the Board of Public Works. You, as a board, have discussed this intersection in this area, I don't want to say ad nauseum, but multiple times about the issues. We put the pedestrian rapid beacon that you see out there. There's some things that's as I told the mayor and administrator, that a little concerned me, and so they agreed that it would be a good idea to bring a Board of Public Works. I'd like to lay it out here and have you all discuss the ideas. So knowing that the signal is under design, but I'd like to walk through the memorandum of understanding because they're looking for some guidance. We'll take that back to the Board of Public Works. I'll talk to the school about the proposed changes. And I think just some thought with some folks who have dealt with this issue and situation for several years on various issues may see some things in here that would provide some guidance, and I'm looking for some guidance from the board.
Okay.
So
One quick question, just
Yes,
so my mind is refreshed real quick. Preserve Way is the roadway to the north, or to the north?
So if when you go to the high school, let me get to the right intersection here. We're right here, yeah. So this is 55th Street. This is the high school. The main entrance to the high school is right here. Preserve Way is that intersection.
Thank you.
We've spent a significant amount of time talking about whatever road this is to the north. If you recall that there's even awkwardly, if you will, where the pedestrians, we actually brought them away from this intersection to have a crossing right there. That was a much safer situation.
Okay, so it's actually the one to the south. Thank you. I
Yes.
just wanted to make sure I knew which intersection we're talking about.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, Preserve Way is the main entrance to the high school. And then even before my time, you recall when the high school was built, there was a lot of discussion about this entrance and pick up and drop off and that sort of thing. And we've had discussion on talking about, follow up on the previous discussion on drivers these days. I've witnessed it after school. And I'm not just talking kids. I think the parents are probably the bad examples for the kids that they're learning from. So having said that, there is an issue out there. I'm not denying that there's not a problem and a lot of frustration. Just not sure that signal was the correct idea, but that's what we're doing. So if you look in your packet, and I apologize the way this was copied, hopefully you were able to read your way through this, but I'm going to start with the page one of what's called Attachment A. It's got R.A. Smith logo on the top. This is the actual scope of work that R.A. Smith is going to do for us. So I want to point out that it doesn't specifically say this, but one thing that's not included in this scope of work is a warrant for the signal. Had a discussion with the consultant on, would that ever get us in trouble? And their comment was they've never been called to court to testify whether a signal is warranted or not. So it's really tough a lot of times with state DOT projects to warrant a signal to get one put in, but once one's put in, it's there and people have to kind of obey it. So that's part of the discussion why you don't see a warrant, which is typically would be part of their scope. And they did some other things in here that tried to minimize their efforts. For example, the public involvement meetings. There's no public involvement meetings. If it's understood it's going to go in, and they're going to go through the process to do that. No need spending hours doing that. Things like utility locates. For the situation, they'll probably they'll get the locates, but they won't actually go out and try to survey the entire area. They'll be able to use aerial photographs for what they're trying to do. Typically, they might be a little bit more in depth, but I think with the situation, again, it's going to be quite honestly, the simplest signal we can find. And then there was a discussion about, I think the MOU talks about, I think it was made in the MOU, the desire to have a solar-powered signal. Talking with consultant, and I verified this with some other consultants. I'm not sure if one of those exists. There are solar panels like what we have for the rapid beacons that are out there, but a solar panel to actually run a full signal is probably not something that we're going to find, or you'll pay a nice premium for it. So there was a desire to save on electric costs, I think was the idea behind that. When you look at the MOU, again, the pages are somewhat messed up, and I apologize for that. Nope. I don't know if you want to go through these one by one, or I'll just go through them all, and then we can open up for discussion.
Okay.
How you prefer? Okay. So number 2, the city shall be responsible for the design, materials procurement, construction management. So that seems reasonable. We would, where we would do all the work on this. It is going to be in the right of way. Number 3, it talks about not only stoplights on this corner, but also talks about adding high visibility crosswalk pavement markings at 2 intersections, the one to the north, and sidewalk crossing south. And the talked about the addition, modification of the school zone assembly, flashing lights now read when flashing versus when children are present. This is one of my concerns, is the fact that it's one of our known secrets that when in the wintertime, when there gets moisture in those beacons, in the push button assembly, basically it freezes and doesn't work. So the idea is we want to make sure that the speed limit's reduced whenever there's children present, not just when flashing, because there's a good possibility in February a kid will be out there pushing and won't be able to do anything. There's talks about pavement markings. I did have R.A. Smith. If you read their scope, they are going to look at this MOU and actually make some comments on all these issues too. So I've asked them to look at that situation, specifically. For example, that's. I mean, I know just enough about traffic engineering to go to the meetings, but for folks that do this really for a living, I would really prefer that if they were to weigh in on all these thoughts and options. So that's kind of the overall summary. I do want to give Tyler a few moments. Tyler has been doing some research today, and he actually came up with, I think, a pretty good idea. So, Tyler, you want to talk about what we're seeing here?
Sure. So this is what is considered like a hawk signal. So it acts in a similar way to those rapid flashing beacons that they're triggered by a push button. However, in this case, it has the arm over the roadway. So these basically, as a pedestrian comes up, they press the push button. The bottom light of the triangle configuration will flash yellow for a certain amount of time. Then it'll go to a solid yellow so that the cars know, like a normal stoplight, hey, I got to slow down. A red light's coming, and then the red lights will activate. The pedestrian will cross, and then the lights will go back to off. So it's been there's a lot of study and data out there. Even R.A. Smith, who's doing the traffic signal design, actually has some research and experience with these as well. I think when I looked, the estimated cost, and it's probably variable depending on the size of the intersection, but ranges from $75,000 to $150,000. So you're probably looking at the most half of the cost of a traditional traffic signal, and this is one that wouldn't need to be maintained in a flashing red or a flashing yellow one. It's not during active school hours. It can just be the lights are off and they're not triggered until a pedestrian crosses. I think this one's in Tucson, Arizona. I don't know any locations around here, but we can look into that as well. But there is a lot of studies and data out there, and I think this would be a good lower cost alternative to a traffic signal, and would require a lot less maintenance from whether it's the district or the city staff.
I have a question. What's the purpose? Is it for pedestrians or is it for traffic?
That's
Is
what I
it
was going
just
to ask the
for
same question.
The mornings and, when school starts and ends, is it?
So for the signal,
Yeah, for the signal.
yeah, I mean, I
Is if it's just
that's
pedestrian?
I think that's
Is
the
it-
issue
is it to
we're
get
coming
cars
into
in
is
and out?
we would like to know, and maybe even get more of a defined study as to what the district is really looking to achieve
So,
here.
so I can tell you that something is needed for traffic a couple times a day. So actually, I'm not even so sure it's needed in the morning, but in the evening, let me say at least once a day. I need to probably observe it for that question, to answer that question. But in the evening, cars would not get out if, waiting for the cross traffic. Without, there is a crossing guard, and God bless that lady. I wouldn't trade her jobs for anything. The days I was out there witnessed her, she got the most hateful things yelled at her, and she took it all with a smile and just a cheerful dance in her step. I mean, I'm very, God bless that lady. Anyway, so I do know in the evening there is probably something in traffic control. There is something needed to control traffic. That's not to say that this couldn't, someone could manually push a button or something and make that happen to allow traffic in and out. So,
Because I was just thinking, if you had a green light coming out of the high school, kids are trying to cross. Now people are trying to turn right into them. You've also got that problem.
Well, but you can control that. You can make,
Put an arrow.
you can put walk signs. You can have, I'm sure that within the construct of a light system, you can have duty times for walkers also. I don't know that, but I would suspect that you could.
This is for a half an hour a day.
For a half an hour a day.
I've got
I would add that would probably add a lot more cost to the system to make it, smarter, if you will. But there's also, it goes back to the false sense of security that
we talked about previously.
a school student may see, hey, there's a white, image that I can walk, and if a car's not paying attention, it still leads to incidents, still leads to crashes and injuries, and there's no guarantee that a traffic signal is just going to solve that. And that goes for this as well. And these can be used in four-legged intersections or just in a mid-block crossing. They've been used in both types.
So I'm assuming that this could also be a light that, quote, I'll call it operational, fully operational, only when, for that 1 or 2 times a day, the morning or afternoon.
Correct. It's definitely
It would only be when it's activated.
When it's
essentially.
activated.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's a goal on the 51st Street.
So I think that's spelled out somewhere in this MOU.
I'm sure it is. I read it. I can't recall it,
You're
but
right.
I'm sure it's in there.
I think there are other low-cost solutions that could be looked at. Glenn, could you pull up the aerial?
One other thing that I would like to, as long as we're having someone take a look at this for us, we have beat this to death. One question over the years that I've been on this board we've never discussed or never dealt with was other communities. I mean, I don't know, I'm not sure I know of another school, and remember, I reffed high school football for like 30 years, so I've driven into a lot of schools. I don't know of any other school that has a stoplight at the entrance to a school.
Greenfield High School does.
Greenfield does. You're
Yeah,
right.
it's
Now,
60th and on Layton too.
yeah, but I stopped reffing in 2003,
that's
so
more
that
recent.
would have been more recent than when I was doing it. So I'm just making the comment. It would be interesting to have some sort of a comparison from that perspective
I
also.
got one just east of there too. Another stoplight.
Okay. So those have been added recently, I'm assuming.
Yeah, probably over the last 5 to
10 years. Yeah. Okay.
One thing I think is probably an issue is that there's 2 crossings right here.
Yep.
Just additional conflict makes sense to put that in only on one side. Especially there's no sidewalk on Preserve Way. You know, if this person, why do they need to cross here? Why can't they cross here? That just, it's a lot of conflict points in an already complicated intersection.
Yep.
Dropping one of those crosswalks would probably help, and you might have a group of students crossing at once rather than one crossing on one side, another one crossing on the other side.
I think when I was out there, one of the big issues is the fact that there's a lot of pickup parents that park all along here. And if you recall, we've even had some issues with people complaining about people parking during this time, blocking driveways. So I think what happens is a lot of students, shortest path, they want to cross here. So if you didn't have a crosswalk here, I think they would probably still try to crosswalk there because all their parents are parked here because they want to get out the quickest.
Yeah. So I just did a quick count in my head. If you drew that down a little bit lower, so I've got both of this, not only the other way. So Preserve Way and the road to the north. Not Coxel, the one that's across from the north, the northerly entrance. I counted real quick in my head. I counted 16 traffic operations for that little distance of road. If you look at all of the left-hand turns, right-hand turns, traffic straight through, left, right turns, pedestrian crossings, I counted 16 just quickly off the top of my head. That's a lot of traffic. That's an awful lot of interactions in a very short period of time, in a short distance.
Yeah,
I'd hate to bring up the word stop sign, but what about those stop signs that you can open up at certain times? And, we only have a four-way stop at that intersection during the times we need it.
we talked about that. I want to say about 2 years ago. I think the thought was that that's really a bad idea because
They're not normally there.
sometimes you have to obey the stop sign. Sometimes you don't. When you know when to obey it, when you don't, those kinds of things. I don't think that's probably a viable thing.
Plus, you have to have somebody out there to open them up and close them up twice a day.
Well, I mean,
You know,
they do have the lady out there,
True,
checking
but-
traffic, but
she gets. I would rather have something there that's permanent.
and in reality, I think you can also. So arguing against the stop signs, I think you could get more traffic out when you need to get traffic out if you just open that up for a while and close off the.
Well, in your request for the consultant, is there a traffic study being requested for this?
There is not a traffic study being requested.
Okay. Is there something that we should be doing in terms of traffic study ourselves? How
Well,
much traffic is
well-
going north? How much is going south? How much is crossing?
So, okay, I understand what you're saying. So they are doing a traffic study as far as traffic counts. So the traffic counts actually I believe were started last week or maybe even done last week.
They're out there right now.
Oh, they're out there right now.
Yeah, I think
So,
as of today, they put the little cameras out there to count. Yep.
so if you want to be counted, you can drive out there tonight.
Well, I'm just thinking about,
So-
all, like I was talking about,
Yeah.
the left-hand turns.
Okay,
the
yeah,
other
I
traffics, and
understand, yeah.
How many vehicles are traveling all straight through and all of that stuff?
And they should know that this next week, so.
Okay,
But as far as a warrant is what they're not doing, but they are doing a traffic count.
okay.
Gotcha. I should also mention, with the pages not being in correct order, messed me up a little bit. But if you were to find the page 2 of the MOU, number 4 is as far as the cost share. I guess I would say that's a policy for the city, so that's probably beyond this board's ability. Number 5, upon mutual agreement, city and school district administrative staff may add measures to the above scope of work and reserve the right to implement additional measures without formal amendment to this MOU as long as the measures do not exceed the liability limitations. So I would suggest to you that makes me a little uncomfortable. I think that anything that's within our city right away, the city should have full control. School or any other business, I don't think they should be out putting a quote-unquote safety sign up in front of their business just because they want to. I think that would be a bad precedent to set. So I guess I would suggest maybe that should be something we alter with this MOU. Number 6, the school district is solely responsible for the necessary maintenance regarding the work. I think I appreciate the fact that this is our only signal and it would cost us something. I would still say that we're probably more in a position to maintain a signal than a school. School should, be taking care of kids, if you will. I would suggest to you that the intent was is they're going to pay for the maintenance. So I would suggest to you that we would hire someone to come do the controls and whatever needs to be done. When needed, we would send them the bill. But there's a lot of things that, for example, if, light poles tend to fall over at 2 o'clock Saturday morning, those kinds of things. So if that were to happen, we have the staff and we have the ability, we have a lot of capabilities to go out and take care of this. We just, can't control and do some of those kinds of things. So I would suggest to you that we keep that in our court, but for any of our expenses, we have the right to invoice the school. I guess I'd make that change also. So those are the things that I saw when I read through it. But I guess I'm interested in knowing what you think, and we could add to the conversation.
Well, we've had some conversation already. I want other comments from anybody on the board. Maybe this is the direction we've been heading for all these years. I don't know. It might be the thing that gets us to the end of this discussion of the school area. I don't know that, but it might be the end of that discussion. Because we've been talking about, parking and traffic through there and all of that. I don't know. So when we get, let me okay, that's logistics. You talked about maintenance and who does what. This is the traffic plan to come up with what they would what our R.A. Smith, the consultant, will come up with a plan for a stoplight at this intersection based on their knowledge and their study of this area.
Yes, they've been directed to look at some of the other issues, and I would be happy to bring those other issues back, the pedestrian crossing kinds of things. But their direction has been to design and put out to bid a signal.
Okay.
So the question is, should we ask R.A. Smith whether they think Hawk is a good idea or bad idea? If they think it's a great idea, maybe this board would suggest that if R.A. Smith thinks that, then maybe I go to a common council and ask for maybe a revision to the R.A. Smith contract to switch from a signal to a Hawk. But if they think it's a bad idea, we'll just let that float on down the river. So.
Well, I don't have an opinion on it. Basically because I hadn't seen a Hawk before. I have seen it. I would assume I've seen it driving down the road, but I'm not sure. I don't drive by the school in the morning, so I don't see the operation of that push button sign. I don't know how functional it is in terms of cars stopping for it. I don't know. At the original time we put it up, we did get feedback that said that it was useful and helpful. But like a lot of the other signs that we put in, now that it's been years later, is it still useful? Is it still helpful? Does it still do what it was put there to do?
That's actually a good question. I'm sitting here thinking maybe in the next week or so I'd like to go out there early in the morning and use it myself and see if they actually stop for me. Yeah, I can't tell you if they do or they don't. I haven't watched for that.
I'm just saying, because that's been out there for a long time now, years. I don't know how many years exactly, but it's certainly been 10, if not more. Maybe not.
The north one has been there probably 10.
Yeah.
The south one.
So the question is, do they actually continue to work if they, I don't know. We initially, we got comments back saying, yeah, but
do use them.
do they still use, I mean, and do people still stop? It's a good question. I don't know the answer.
The only concern I've heard is the wintertime freezing, that I understand the buttons don't always work. Is that still the case?
Well, not, I mean, in the beginning it was, but now that we kind of work with it, and I think we've got that issue pretty
Oh,
well.
that's solved?
Pretty well, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I was unaware of that.
So, so that's kind of the question. I don't, we have not had experience with stoplights. I don't know, like you said, we don't have a set of warrants for them, but if ever there was a location where I think this might be it for a stoplight situation where you have a high amount of traffic in a short amount of time, I say irregularly because it's not continuously during the day. It's only, while school is letting out or even coming in the morning. It doesn't last that long. This might be one of those locations that help. I don't know. It also might help the traffic on. It also might help traffic on the north end at that walking cross light, because it will give if this light is turned red at a given moment and then someone's trying to cross at that crosswalk and they hit the button, more people are going to, it might be give them a little bit more break in traffic to do that. I don't know. I just don't know the full scenarios. So I bring up questions because I don't know.
And they're all good questions, and I don't know either. That's why I am interested in your input, and so we'd like to, I'll take that and talk to the consultant, and maybe he can make me feel better about the whole idea, or maybe he can say, you really got some concerns. I just don't know. So.
Well, at least we know we have things that we don't know. I'm serious. That is an important thing to admit. When you don't know something, and you need to ask a question. Sometimes it's hard to form a question, but in this case, I think there are things that we don't know, and maybe we'll have questions after we get some response.
See what the engineer has to say.
Definitely be an agenda item next month. So,
Okay.
What I would suppose I'd like to do is I'd like to maybe mark up the MOU. So now that you understand the situation, maybe next month we get some more comments on the MOU draft.
Okay.
And then I'll have some more information from the consultant, follow up on some various ideas, and perhaps next time I'll have more of a question. Do you like A or B kind of thing? I don't know.
Yeah, we'll figure that out. I'm going to mark this as just, this was brought to the board for comments for the engineering staff, and no motion is necessary.
Maybe, well, okay.
Is that, I don't see where,
What I suggest is maybe just table to next month's meeting, because we will be discussing this. more in the
okay,
meeting, so.
yeah, we'll be discussing this, so, okay. Perfect. So so I guess we'll ask for a motion to table until next,
I'll make a
our
motion to
next meeting.
table to next month.
Second it. Commissioner Skaronski, welcome back, by the way, it's been a while.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Porter has seconded that. And then all of those, any other comments before I ask for this? Okay, all of those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, that motion will pass. Okay, now, I'm gonna do this quick. Okay, now we're gonna go on to the last items of the day. So let me speak up on the election of a chairperson. Some of you know, I have purchased some land, and I am not moving imminently, but I would say within the next 18 months to 2 years, highly likely I will not be in the community anymore. I don't mind staying as the chairman, however, or the chairperson, whatever you want to call it. However, I think a transition time is always good, and I know when I became the chairman, it was a 5-minute understanding because the old chairman resigned that day, and we came to a meeting and they said, "You're it." And I've never been comfortable here, but I took on that responsibility and did my best. But I have no issues if members of this board want to move someplace else and have a transition year where I'm still on the board to help out, and you have someone else being in that chairman position. So with that, I will open up to the floor for a nomination for a chairperson for the next year.
Just a quick comment. I do agree with what you're saying, because as long as you're still here, you're a wealth of knowledge and experience that any other person would definitely be able to take advantage of. So I agree with your way of looking at it.
Okay. And
And what?
anything else you want to add to that at this point?
No,
That's not helpful. Okay.
It's too bad Miss Speck isn't here.
Yeah, so
We can nominate her.
here's the issue. I approached Ms. Speck a few months back, let her know this situation. And I think if she was here, I think we would have a nomination that way. I don't think it's appropriate to have a nomination for her at this point in time when she's not here. So my question is now procedural, sir.
Procedurally, I believe your bylaws do indicate that you will make votes, nominate or elect new people, or elect your chairman, and so forth in
or the first
October.
meeting thereafter.
Having said that, I know there's been years past where that didn't happen. What I would suggest is maybe if you would prefer to hold off until vote next meeting, maybe you will put that on the first thing on the agenda for next meeting. That way, the next chairman can run the next meeting.
I'm certainly okay with that, and like I said, I would continue and switch at some other time. I'm just giving the opportunity. So, and the issue, and I know that Mr. Johnson and Mr. Skoronsky, you've not been, on this board, and you've not been here for quite a while. So, this is kind of sprung on you from the thought processes. So, I'm thinking that there would be how about we do this? How about this? If I say I will not accept a nomination at this time, and that gives, if we table this for a month for someone else to step forward who wishes to take that position, would that be an appropriate approach?
Works for me.
Can't we just table it?
Yeah, well, I'm trying to table it in a way that, so the issue is that we went through and made updated all of our bylaws of this board a few years back. And one of the things is it's supposed to be elected the first meeting after or starting in the October meeting or the first meeting thereafter. And that's where I'm running into a little bit of an issue here. And it's just where we all came together here tonight, and I think, so let's have if it's okay with the board to have a motion to table this until the November meeting or the December meeting, that would be acceptable
So moved.
Okay, second.
Okay,
And we'll put it first on the agenda.
we'll put it first on the agenda for the next meeting. So that's moved by Commissioner, what did I do? Johnson, yeah. Well, what I did was, I'm correcting a little issue that I corrected earlier. Commissioner Johnson, and seconded by Commissioner Porter. All of those in favor of that motion, aye?
Aye.
I'm going to abstain from that motion. Okay?
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's appropriate for me to abstain. And then,
Question,
yes,
can we do this with both of them at the same time next month?
I was just going to ask that same question.
I
I
would
think that would
personally
be
be in favor of
appropriate
doing the two of them together.
It would make perfect sense to do them together next meeting, first step off. So would there be a motion to table for 1 month the election of a board recorder? By whom? Alderman? Alderman will make that motion? Is there a second to that motion?
Sure.
Mr. Johnson. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then we will, that motion will pass, and that will be on the first thing next month. Okay? And we'll take care of it then. Then I'll move on to, all future agenda items next month is gonna be we're gonna take care of those elections. Anything else?
There is, I can't remember what they are, but I have had some things that been on the back burner that weren't pressing enough for the past few meetings, but I didn't want to make this meeting too much longer. I wasn't very good at that, but I'll bring them on for the next meeting.
Okay. The next normal meeting time would be December the 12th at 6 o'clock. So that's just informational purposes. And so it is 7:31.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Commissioner Porter, seconded by, was that Commissioner Skronsky? All of those in favor, aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.